Dawn of Defense is one of those game titles that doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but mentions of RTS, real-time strategy, and TD, tower defense, made us curious. Watching the trailer and playing the demo of Dawn of Defense immediately took us back to one of our favorite games, Warcraft III. We got a hold on the developer Six Studio and talked to Leo, the creative director, about RTS and TD on episode 46 on our podcast OpenIndie.
I think all of the genres do have obviously their right to just completely stand alone, but people are generally interested in something new. The tower defense genre and RTS genre, they are quite old. If you just make another good RTS game or another good tower defense game without some kind of unique twist, then for some people it would just scratch the old itch, but generally I guess it would just be more or less ignored.
RTS and TD are two genres that sadly aren't as popular as they once were, despite having shaped an entire generation of players in the early 2000s. While they were usually played separately, Dawn of Defense attempts something that sounds questionable on paper, combining RTS and TD into a single game. Many aspects of Dawn of Defense immediately reminded me of Warcraft III, both from the main game back then and from TD custom games. The typical isometric view, building towers, building an army, click-dragging a selection box over your army, and right-clicking on the map to order them to move and fight. The art style also looked similar, although according to Dev Leo from Six Studio, the style was rather based on the game Northgard.
Yeah, I think the best description would be to actually go to like Northgard. We do have like PBR rendering and some like more modern rendering features, but we keep this kind of stylized, hand-painted aesthetic. Then obviously we have some of the Mordor aesthetic for the Empire, which was also quite fun to make, like trolls and goblins and legionaries and kind of like volcanic atmosphere, and intertwine that with like the Norse aesthetics and buildings.
Still, it all felt familiar, so naturally I expected something close to Warcraft III. I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that RTS, real-time strategy, is combined with a TD, tower defense mechanic. RTS games are all about speed, multitasking, and constant decision-making. Tower defense games are usually the exact opposite. I also asked several Reddit communities, and opinions were heavily divided. Could something like this actually work? I kept an open mind, but I expected the two mechanics to clash rather than complement each other.
Hold here.
At the start of the game, you can control a hero and are advised to build some towers. On my first playthrough, I built them near the neighboring island because I expected enemies to attack from there. Why else should the hero be here already? Once I started the first wave, I quickly realized that they only ran through the trenches, while my hero couldn't reach them, nor the towers I built. On my second playthrough, I knew better, building more towers at better locations, recruiting a small army and building a bridge, so I can defeat enemy armies above ground, claim more islands, and receive more money. The goal of the demo was to destroy the enemy tower. Except for the first wave, there's an automatic timer which starts the next wave that's running through the trenches. I can either start the wave early, or rather build or upgrade more towers, or try to claim more islands. You hardly need to micromanage your army. Simply highlighting them and clicking on or close to the enemy already does the trick. Once my hero died, once the enemy sneakily claimed my starting island, but I hardly ever felt in any danger above ground. Instead, most of my attention went into tower placement, as that was what repeatedly caused me trouble. On my 5th or 6th try, I defeated the enemy tower, but the final boss in the trenches destroyed my main tower, delivering me a game over screen once again. So it's challenging. On our podcast OpenIndie, we chatted with developer Leo from Six Studio about the very early stages of Dawn of Defense, back when it was merely a prototype, and how they wanted to receive funding for it in Germany.
And then they had funding requirements, and like one of the funding requirements was it has to have some historical reference or cultural reference to the region and to Germany.
Oh, really?
Like, I mean, you don't have to check all the boxes. Like, you have some freedom.
Okay, so they had to be a bit creative.
And we were like, okay, what if, like the pagan tribes back then that were in the region, and then the Roman Empire actually crossed the Rhine. They invaded and then converted the pagan tribes and made it part of the Roman Empire. And we were like, what if we, as a very, very loose reference, we slap that in, and then we come up with this like completely fictional factions. You have the rough inspiration and you can tick that box, and this is kind of how the setting emerged.
Leo also said that they didn't just choose the setting to receive funding, but also because they think it's cool. In Dawn of Defense's current state, this game is not for RTS fans who enjoy deep macro and micromanagement. It is not a copy of Warcraft III nor any of the StarCraft titles. Instead, this game is aimed at TD fans who like to spice up their planning phases and who don't mind keeping an eye on their army at all times. It is not a complex strategic game, but you still need to choose your upgrades and tower placements carefully. Surprisingly, the RTS and TD mechanics work alongside each other quite well. At the moment, however, they still feel somewhat disconnected. The main connection between the two systems comes from claiming islands for additional income, which can then be invested into your defenses. And when you destroy the enemy tower, which results in the final boss wave, they could benefit more from each other. Thronefall already was a very good example of this. Another indie that I absolutely enjoyed. In that game, your towers and units fight the same enemy waves, while still demanding a great deal of strategic planning, like where to place everyone. I still had fun with the demo of Dawn of Defense, but I hope that Leo and his team will still add more elements and tactics to the final version. In fact, Leo and his team continue to release frequent updates. A full release is planned in Q4 2026. Plan, build, recruit, fight, survive. That's Dawn of Defense in short. I can recommend checking out the demo on Steam. Would you give this RTS TD hybrid a try? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this format, please like and subscribe. And if you want the full story behind Dawn of Defense, check out episode 46 of the OpenIndie podcast. Available here on YouTube and also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.